Eric Lanass coming to you from Cloud Expo in New York. Talking with me now is Stephen Cody from Alert Logic. Stephen, good morning. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with something easy this morning. Tell me a little bit about Alert Logic. Who are you?
Sure, Alert Logic is a managed security service provider, and what we do is we provide security operations and technologies to clients so that we can monitor their environments for malicious activities and cyber threats and be able to escalate those incidents to the IT teams within those companies to resolve as quickly as possible. So we have a 15-minute SLA, which is pretty good in the industry.
So certainly we're constantly hearing about new threats, new vulnerabilities. That's something that you, as a vendor, have to stay on top of. How do you manage to stay on top of the new vulnerabilities?
It's all about threat research and threat intelligence. So one of the key things that you always have to do is have a solid research team that's looking for those new and emerging threats. So scouring the underground, buying new and emerging malware that's coming out, starting to reverse engineer that malware, find those indicators of compromise, and then build security content around those indicators of compromise is really what makes a security intelligence team efficient and make them operational. Because it goes far beyond just research. It's, how does this research affect the enterprise? How does it, how can I build defenses, protection with this information that you've gathered?
Certainly there's a ton of options, many alternatives out there for protecting your enterprise. What kind of tools does Alert Logic think are the best for protection?
Well, with Alert Logic, we have a threat management product, which is our IDS, log management product, as well as a web application firewall and anomaly behavior via NetFlow. Now, to understand what needs to be done within an enterprise, you have to have a full security in-depth strategy. There is no one vendor that's that silver bullet out there. So it's a combination of partners that come together to secure your environment. Now, through our log management platform, we ingest all the logs from all the different security products that you might deploy within your environment. It then runs through our proprietary SIM and generates security incidents. But without all those extra products, we don't have that enriched data in our incident, which might not help the server guy or the networking guy to resolve that incident within their environments. So the content is king. Content is truly king as far as, who's reverse engineering, who's looking at that new and emerging threat, who's purchasing that malware off the Russian underground. Not everybody has that capability. So that's where threat intelligence and research really play a key role in developing security content for companies to protect themselves.
And why is cloud the best way to bring all this information together?
Cloud is a very agile environment. I mean, it's perfect for the perfect startups, but it's also great for the MasterCards of the world that are running a Super Bowl campaign, right? So, I mean, it's a very agile environment that's always changing, always expanding. People are using it a lot due to low cost. I mean, to be able to build your own infrastructure these days, just the real estate, the building, the HVAC systems, the servers, the hardware, the cages, the racks, I mean, it's very expensive to build your own infrastructure these days. So a lot of companies, even today, are making that decision. My architecture's aging. I have to replace my hardware. I have to replace my data center. I have to, update all my HVAC systems. Do I make that investment or do I move into the cloud? That's a big decision that a lot of decision makers are actually facing today. And so the cloud provides a perfect option for these people. And to think that the cloud is not secure, because that's always been one of the biggest, right? That's always been one of the biggest holdups. Hey, cloud's not secure. Well, guess what? Cloud is secure. Cloud gets hit about just as frequently as your enterprise environment gets hit, just different attack vectors. Where in an enterprise environment, you might see more Trojan activity. You're going to see more web app attacks inside of a hosted environment, inside the cloud. But the frequency is about the same.
Interesting. So it seems like the bad guys are always ahead of the vendors like Alert Logic. Inevitably, enterprises are going to get hit. Something's going to happen. What are your thoughts on suggestions on how enterprises should react when something does happen?
As quickly as possible. The key way to react on an incident is you got to keep a level head. I mean, you got to bring in the right resources, and you have to think through the incident response. That's where log management, like for a perfect example, is a very key part of incident response, because the average time that an attacker sits on your network is about 229 days. That's according to the Mandiant report. And during that 229 days, how do you know they were there? Do you have the logs that go back 229 days to find patient zero, to find who patient zero accessed, what workstations were touched, what servers were modified? You have to be able to have that data. So having solid infrastructure is number one. Having the right people in the incident response room, you have to have, your networking guys, your server guys, your security people, your desktop support guys. You have to have somebody from marketing put a good spin on it. You have to have executives that can clear the paths for you to do what you need to do during this time of crisis. But it all comes down to a combination of technology, people, and process that people need to have invested in their environments to have a quick incident response.
You have a good example of how one of your customers has leveraged Alert Logic to protect their environment.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, we deploy these technologies within a customer environment, but we also ingest a lot of different technologies out there. I'll give you a quick example via our NetFlow. So we run what's called an Active Watch Premier team that looks at a lot of our top tier customers and starts monitoring their NetFlow activity, looking for malicious activity. And one of the interesting things they found was they found an actual photocopier that was sending data off-site to a Russian IP address. And you're thinking, a photocopier, right? Well, if you think about it, a photocopier has a memory chip in it. It caches everything that's printed, everything that's scanned, everything that's copied. And so it's a great place to grab some intelligence. So via NetFlow, we were able to see, why is this printer sending data off to Russia? This is very unique. And that was able to cut that down in a matter of minutes as far as exposing the customer data to the outside world. So, that's a great example of the people and process and technology working in conjunction to resolve an incident as quickly as possible.
Wow, that's fantastic. We've already talked a little bit about some of the options that are out there and available. What makes Alert Logic different from some of the other cloud vendors?
I really think it's the people. Our technology, we're in a room here filled with technology, right? But it's the people and process that make the technology work efficiently. It's the people who are monitoring the logs 24/7, the people who are writing the security content based on indicators of compromise. And I think that's where we shine, is our people. Our people are the differentiator between us and everybody else. The technologies you can find in this room, but it's the people in the process that make those technologies work efficiently. And I think that's really one of the big differentiators. The fact that we have security operations centers here in the United States and in the UK that we're monitoring 24/7, that we have a well-trained staff that looks for even anomalies. So when our SIM does not generate incidents and they're looking through just raw events, hey, this looks interesting and we're not picking up something on it, I can look through this and find an incident that might be occurring. Maybe it's not, maybe it is. If we can validate it, let's get it to the content guys. Let's write some content, build some logic around this, because this could be a new and emerging threat that we haven't seen before. So it really is the people and process that support the technology that makes Alert Logic different.
Excellent. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining me. Good luck. I'm going to let you get back to making sure that your team is on top of the latest threats.
Thank you. I appreciate that.